Welcome back. House Republicans are ramping up their impeachment efforts despite being on recess. Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer officially inviting President Biden to testify publicly on his family's business schemes. The invitation is for next month. In a letter to the president, Comer says impeachment investigators have accounted for $24 million from foreign sources that was sent to either Joe Biden, his family, or their business associates, adding that the committee has identified, quote, no legitimate services to merit such lucrative payments. Meanwhile, House Speaker Mike Johnson telling Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer that the House will send impeachment articles against Department of Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas. Those articles going to the Senate on April 10th. Schumer's office responded, saying senators will be sworn in as jurors on the following day. Joining me now is Virginia Congressman Rob Wittman. He is the Vice Chairman of the House Armed Services Committee and a member of the House China Select Committee. Congressman, thanks very much for being here this morning. First, this letter from James Comer. Do you know if the Oversight Committee has gotten a response here? Do you expect Joe Biden to testify in this impeachment inquiry?
Well, Maria, I think Chairman Comer has done an excellent job in seeking out the truth, getting to all the different places where we need to get information about President Biden's activities that could rise to the level of an impeachable offense. It's a very, very high standard. We know that it's high crimes and misdemeanors, treason and bribery. I think that takes due diligence from the House. I think Chairman Comer has done that. I want to make sure that the president has the opportunity to come in and provide information to both the Congress and the American people about these allegations. They are very serious, and we deserve to get to the truth.
Yeah, I mean, this letter says it all. This is an incredible letter that Comer has sent President Biden. He says the committee's investigation has proceeded in phases. It began with a review of suspicious activity reports in the custody of the Department of Treasury, providing the committee sufficient information to determine which bank accounts to narrowly target and issuing subpoenas. Then the next phase was subpoenaing certain third-party accounts. The committee subpoenaed the bank accounts of members of your family, the entities receiving the foreign funds. He goes on, goes through China, goes through Ukraine, and goes on, and Russia, all the loans that the president says where there's no evidence of any loans, and it was just checks one way. Do you believe that this president will respond and actually answer these questions?
Well, I think he has to. These are very serious allegations, Maria.
Yeah, they are.
We know that we have to hold the president to the standard that everybody else is held to, and that is that he has to be able to function beyond question. And I think these questions are very troubling, and we have to get to the truth here. And I think Chairman Comer is doing exactly that. And that's why the president needs to come in and answer to these very serious allegations.
Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, we see the election polls that continue to find people are looking at President Trump. New Fox News polls find 59% of Americans side with Israel, while 28% side with the Palestinians. That was in October. In October, only 18% were siding with the Palestinians. So look how these numbers have increased here. A separate Fox News poll finds more Americans trust former President Trump to do a better job on foreign policy than President Biden. Trump is up 11 points, Congressman, even in the face of all of these indictments from the DOJ. Your reaction?
Well, I think what we're seeing is the result of failed leadership by the Biden administration in those provocative speeches that are anti-Israel by Senator Schumer on the Senate floor. You see why the American opinion on Israel is eroding, because you see this anti-Israel rhetoric coming from the Biden administration and from Democrats. It's regretful. Israel is our strongest ally in that region. We need to be supporting Israel, not going after Israel, not weakening Israel. But that seems to be the effort of the Biden administration, and I think that's why people are showing a lack of confidence in the Biden administration and their foreign policy.
Well, they certainly have, put Israel in a spot in terms of answering to the calls for a ceasefire, even though we're not hearing any promises from Hamas that they'll release any hostages. Cheryl Casoni, jump in here.
Well, I think what's interesting about Chuck Schumer is that it shows the overall concern that I think not just Schumer, but the Biden administration has, Congressman, about the rhetoric against Israel. The fact that you've got Chuck Schumer making these comments was frankly surprising, considering the demographic of his own constituency. But this pressure on Netanyahu is not effective. It has not been effective at all, even though you've got Palestinian protests happening all across the country. Is there any sense of where Netanyahu's line is going to be, and if he is willing to once again go back and talk to Hamas, despite the fact, as Maria rightly points out, they have said nothing about releasing those hostages?
Listen, I think that Netanyahu is focused, and his resolve is strong to say that there's not going to be any talk of any sort of truce until the hostages are released. And he has to do that. You cannot negotiate from a position of weakness. And Prime Minister Netanyahu knows that. And he's been through these things before. He's been through these situations where you have these forces of evil in the Middle East, and he stood up to them, and he understands that the only way to counter evil is to stand up to it, is to be forceful, and to be direct in saying this is what we expect and this is what we will do, because anything else signifies weakness. And believe me, the forces of evil in the Middle East will exploit that.
Well, it's unbelievable that, you know, the administration and the Democrats are attacking Netanyahu in the middle of the fight of his life and in the middle of the fight of Israel's life right now. I mean, that's just stunning. But I want to get your take on China, because you're on the China Select Committee, and the DOJ is now accusing 7 Chinese nationals with ties to a state-sponsored group of running a hacking scheme targeting U.S. businesses, political officials, candidates, even campaign staff. This indictment is charging the nationals were promoting the Chinese government's economic espionage and foreign intelligence objectives, and were able to successfully compromise some email accounts and phone records, Congressman. Do we know how these Chinese nationals got into the country? Did they come through the open border? And what are they doing? What are you doing on the China Select Committee to push back on this China propaganda and behavior?
Well, Maria, we know, based on a recent hearing we had with the director of the National Cybersecurity Center, with the director of Cybercom, with the director of the FBI, the extent to which the Chinese are going to infiltrate our data systems here and operation systems in the United States. It's very concerning, with the malware that they're pre-placing there that can be activated at a moment's notice. That would be in the instance if there is a effort by the Chinese to retake Taiwan by force. We know these efforts are nefarious, and we know that they are relentless. And the scale of these efforts should concern everyone. That's what concerns me. You know, as I get to classify briefs here and understand what the Chinese are doing, the extent to which they're going through to do this. And then you see, just here in the last year, we know at least 20,000 Chinese nationals have come across the border, and even more that have come across unapprehended. The scale at which China is pursuing these actions against the United States is absolutely sobering. And Maria, let's call this for what it is. China will do everything and anything it can to defeat the United States. They're not a competitor. They're an adversary, and they will lie, cheat, and steal to accomplish their ends. It's plain and simple, and we have to stand up against that. If not, they will prevail.
Well, we got to jump, but real quick, do you know if they came here through the open border, these Chinese nationals that the DOJ are targeting right here, the 7 of them, or do we know how they're in the country?
Maria, we don't, but I think we need to find out exactly how they got here.
Yeah, I'd like to know. Yeah. All right. We will keep watching that, Congressman. Thank you, sir. Rob Wittman joining us this morning.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Maria.
And to you. We'll be right back.